Hi, I'm Alex and welcome back to Dreams of Green. Today I wanted to talk to you about this amazing rainforest tree that happens to be incredibly drought tolerant as well as frost tolerant. So I thought with the predicted forecast coming up of very dry, hot conditions, it was a very timely video. So let me introduce you to the Illawarra flame tree. So you can see behind me up our driveway, we've got several, and I'm very grateful because the previous owner planted them. And one thing that really struck me, when we had one of the worst droughts on record when we bought the property back in 2019, these Illawarra flame trees, and I'll show you the beautiful flowers shortly, they were only probably up to my hip in terms of height, yet they still managed to survive. And then when we got the floods that came through and huge amounts of rain, all of a sudden they shot up and they are over, I would say, 6 meters tall. So they have this magnificent, if I can show you here, they just have this magnificent red flower. Many of them lose their leaves and become all red, but ours have just started flowering and they've kept their leaves. So the other thing that you'll notice, they don't make a good windbreak tree because they have a huge taproot. That's why they're so drought tolerant. So they do create incredible shade. So if I walk up here, we had a huge storm come through and these are kind of out by themselves. They don't have any trees protecting them. So the wind came through, blew 3 of them over our driveway. And we managed to save 2, but sadly we lost 1. So what happens is, because they've got the taproot, the wind catches, look at this one, the wind catches the canopy and moves it around like this, working the taproot loose, and that's when they kind of fell over. The wind direction changed, then it came back, and that's why they fell over. But I'll show you this little one here. So I'll see if I can, so we put in a replacement one just here. And so this is the replacement baby Illawarra flame tree. So I'm hoping it will get some rain this season and it'll catch up, but otherwise I know that, as I said, super tough and it looks like they should survive. So what I'll do now is we're going to go up to a tree further up the driveway, because it's actually our first seed. So I want to show you how to collect the seed and also how to propagate them. And they're really easy and really fast growing. So we'll go for a wander. So I'm here with one of our bigger trees and it flowered for the first time last year. And I'm so excited. We've got so many seed that we can propagate. So I'll show you how to collect the seed. You do have to actually wear gloves. So inside the seed, I don't know if you can see there, but the coating of the seed has they're covered in tiny hairs and they're really irritating to the skin. So I do use gloves when I'm collecting these. And the other thing, I'll try and turn these around. We have these jewel beetles. Look at the colors. So I looked them up. That's the female there, the orange one, and the male one is the blue and green. So we've got heaps of seed. I don't know if they eat them, but they've been there for months and months now, so I've just let them go. The other thing with the seed as well, it's really good. It's got long longevity, so you can store the seed for up to 2 years. They'll still germinate. A lot of Australian rainforest seeds, you have to actually collect them and sow them straight away because they lose their viability. So I'll just show you now. I'll just grab some gloves. So I've got some gloves on now. So I'm just going to break off just a couple of pods and we'll take them up to the house and I'll show you just how easy it is to propagate these. The other thing I forgot to mention too, a lot of trees that I do have on the property, especially eucalypts, rainforest species, a lot of them are useful timber species and koala feed as well. This tree, the timber's not really useful for, it's not like a hardwood timber or useful timber, but they are beautiful, they are super tough, and they provide amazing shade. So that's one of the reasons that I have planted several of these all around the property. So I've actually decided to do it under our front veranda because it's a beautiful afternoon. So we've brought our seed pods up to the house. I've got my gloves on And what I do is I'll just show you how to crack it open. Sometimes they're quite tough. You might have to use like some pliers or something, but usually you'll see in there, if I can get the light right for you. There you go. You can see the seeds inside. So you just try and peel it, break it open. Oops. And this is what will come out. So you can see they're yellow. I have read they can be edible. I mean, I've never tried them, and because they have the irritating hairs, I'm sure there's a special way of preparing them. And then what I do with the seeds is I've just got here a takeaway container, not a takeaway container, but a container destined for the compost bin. I've drilled some holes in the bottom, and I just use a 50-50 blend of sharp river sand and compost, and just kind of pat it down, make sure the soil's nice and moist. And then I just scatter the seeds. You can sow them into individual pots as well, but because of the sheer volume that I do, I tend to just mass sow in these containers, and then as they pop up and they're big enough to handle, then I just pot them up into individual pots later. So I'll just break this one open. So you'll notice too, like just in Australia, I see them as street trees as far south as Melbourne in Victoria, and also kind of up in Queensland as well. So really diverse hardy tree, which is great. Often you'll be able to collect the seed in parks as well. So I've done that in the past before ours gave us our own seed. So just scattering these across. You can kind of shell off the coating, but to be honest, I don't bother. I just kind of sprinkle them over the top. Then what I'm going to do is just press them in so they've got good contact with the soil. And that should be enough. And then I've just got some more of the same sharp sand and compost mix to sprinkle over the top. Because they're a fairly large seed, you do just need a little bit of extra covering versus something like a eucalypt or a casuarina or something like that. So the larger the seeds, the more soil you're able to cover them with. And then the finer seeds should just be kind of sprinkled lightly on the top. So just make sure they've got a really thorough covering of seed. And if you're doing this at another time of year, again, because the seeds maintain their viability for a couple of years, just make sure, if nothing's happened over winter, just make sure you wait until the temperatures warm up, because sometimes nothing will happen for months if the temperature's too cold, and then all of a sudden, when the conditions are right, they all pop up at once. So just give it a nice tap. I also just give it a bit of a water in. So I wanted to demonstrate too how low tech all of this is. I don't have a professional setup, because you can just use things like this container that we're going to go into the recycling bin. And then what I water with, it's just I think this is a kombucha bottle, but you can just buy these little pourers. I think I got these from the Diggers Club in Australia, but I think you can just find them online. And it's just great because if this bottle kind of wears out, I just unscrew the lid and pop it on a new bottle. So I just find it easier than kind of handling a watering can. So I'll just give these a good soak. Like that. And again, I'm just seeing one just popping out there, so I'll just make sure it's covered. And you want to I just keep these under a 50% shade cloth in my nursery, and just make sure you keep them moist but not soaking wet. Just don't allow them to dry out. I then always make sure I've got the label, and if you're collecting them from, let's say, a park or on the as a street tree, I'll usually just note exactly where I collected. So next year, if I want to get more, I know exactly where to get them from, because once you start collecting seed, you can never remember where you got them all from. So I put today's date, flame tree, and I'm putting that I collected the seed from home. So there you have it. Then when they start popping up, they should be popping up within a month. So as I said, if it's cooler temperatures, allow it more time until it warms up. And then once the seedlings are large enough to handle, I will just pot them up into smaller pots. but you want to be doing it fairly soon because they have that taproot that gets established really quickly. You don't want to leave a heap of seedlings in this pot when they're this tall, because then what happens is that taproot, instead of being straight, will start kind of, I think they call it a J root, when it starts growing along the bottom of your container. And similarly, when you pot them up into your smaller, let's say tube stock or something, you want to allow room for that taproot, because it is very fast growing. So just make sure, like this is again recycling everything. This is a used coffee cup. So this gives you like a good idea. Have something that's really deep to allow for the root structure. So that is the Illawarra flame tree. I hope you're able to find some seed in a local garden or park or as a street tree, and I hope you're able to propagate some yourself at home. But yes, one I highly recommend, especially if you get droughts like we do here in Kyogle. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.